Ever dream of building like a billion-dollar business? You know, a unicorn, as they call them. Well, today, we're really diving deep into that world of entrepreneurship. And get this, we've got insights from someone who's not just ridden the unicorn roller coaster.
Right.
He's built it, exited, and then hopped right back on for another ride.
Yeah.
Julian Kyula.
Julian's experience building and exiting multiple companies gives him such a unique perspective, and he really doesn't hold back.
I was blown away by his honesty. Like,
Yeah.
he really lays it all out there.
Yeah, he does.
So if you're ready to get real about what it takes to navigate fundraising, build an amazing team, and even know when to just call it quits, this deep dive is for you.
Absolutely.
Julian doesn't sugarcoat anything, and honestly, that's what makes his advice so valuable.
Yeah, one of the first things he stressed was diligence. Like, you absolutely need a solid business plan, market analysis, and ideally, at least a prototype ready to go before you even think about approaching investors.
It's like showing up to a potluck
Yeah.
with a fully cooked dish
Yeah.
versus just an idea for a recipe.
Yeah.
You're going to make a much stronger impression if you've got something tangible to show for all your efforts.
Exactly. Investors need to see action, not just like ideas. And speaking of investors, Julian had this fascinating point about understanding, what makes them tick.
Oh, okay.
He gave this example of Nehemiah from the Bible.
Okay.
And how he didn't just demand resources, he appealed to the king's values.
Such a brilliant parallel.
Yeah.
It highlights how crucial it is to tailor your pitch to resonate with an investor's motivations. What are their goals? What are they ultimately looking for?
Right.
If you can align your pitch with their vision, you're far more likely to secure funding.
It's about speaking their language, understanding their world.
Yeah.
And Julian's insights into the different types of capital that really struck me. He compared it to a journey, say, from Nairobi to Mombasa. Do you need a speedy, 4-hour trip? Or are you okay with a leisurely 12-hour drive?
Okay.
The answer determines what type of vehicle you need, right?
Right.
Which translates to the type of capital you're seeking.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It makes the decision so much clearer. So if you're aiming for that unicorn status, you might need to be open to giving up more equity initially.
Yeah.
Kind of like trading in your sedan for a rocket ship
Yeah.
to reach your destination faster.
He used the example of Mark Zuckerberg. Doesn't own a majority share of Facebook anymore.
Right.
But look at what he built.
It's about playing the long game, right? Understanding that sometimes owning a smaller piece of a much larger pie can actually lead to a faster, more significant exit down the line.
He also cautioned against being blinded by valuation, especially in those early stages. Don't get so caught up in maintaining ownership that you stifle growth.
Yeah.
Sometimes prioritizing growth over holding on to a massive chunk of equity can be the smarter play in the long run.
He actually argues that prioritizing growth can often lead to a faster, more significant exit, ultimately putting more money in your pocket, even with a smaller ownership percentage.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that dilution is a reality of growth.
Right.
But you can be strategic about it.
Julian talked about founder protections and how you can ensure, even if you're not the majority shareholder, that you still have a voice, a say in the direction of your company.
Protecting your vision is so key. You're building something you're passionate about, and maintaining some level of control, even as you grow and bring in investors, is crucial. Now, I was fascinated by Julian's take on the differences between, say, African and Western investors.
He mentioned that African investors, they often prioritize cash reserves.
Okay, yeah.
They want to see that you're managing money responsibly.
Makes sense.
That you're in it for the long haul.
Meanwhile, American investors might be more interested in that hockey stick growth trajectory.
Yeah.
They want to see rapid expansion, even if it means burning through cash at a faster rate.
Knowing this can be a game changer when you're fundraising.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. It allows you to prepare, strategize, and tailor your pitch accordingly. You'll walk in understanding their priorities and how to best present your business in a way that resonates with their investment style.
It's like knowing the dress code for a party.
Right.
You wouldn't show up in a ball gown if everyone else is wearing jeans and a t-shirt, right?
Exactly.
You want to make sure you're speaking the right language, conveying the right message for the audience you're trying to reach.
And on that note, Julian offered some really insightful advice on when to approach investors.
Okay.
He advises against waiting until you're desperate for funding.
Interesting.
He said that investors can practically smell desperation.
Really?
And it weakens your negotiating position.
Yeah, I could see that.
Imagine walking into a salary negotiation after you've already got another offer in your back pocket.
Right.
You're not as desperate, so you're more likely to stand your ground.
You have leverage.
Precisely. It's about approaching investors from a position of strength when you still have some runway. It shows confidence, and it allows you to negotiate from a place of power, not desperation.
But don't wait until you're down to your last dollar to start thinking about fundraising.
Right.
Get ahead of the game,
Yeah.
build those relationships early on, and you'll be in a much stronger position when it comes time to secure funding.
He also highlighted a common mistake entrepreneurs make after a successful funding round.
Okay.
Going on a hiring spree.
Oh, yeah. I can see how that happens. You get this influx of cash, and it's so tempting to build your dream team overnight.
Yeah.
But Julian cautions against it, right?
He's all about hiring smart, not fast.
Okay.
He's learned to be more measured in his approach, to really focus on building that A-team without breaking the bank.
And you know what's interesting? He actually said that salary isn't everything when it comes to attracting top talent.
He's a big believer in finding people who are passionate believers in your vision.
Yeah.
That shared excitement, that sense of purpose, can be far more powerful than a hefty paycheck, especially in those early stages when resources are tight.
So how do you attract and retain that kind of talent when you're pre-revenue or working with limited resources?
Julian's a huge advocate for creative compensation.
Okay, unpack that for us. What does creative compensation actually look like in practice?
Well, he talked about things like employee stock ownership plans.
Oh, yeah.
Or ESOPs,
Right.
which give early employees a literal stake in the company's success.
I love that.
Yeah.
It aligns their incentives with the company's goals. It's a win-win.
Exactly. And he also suggested considering short-term contracts,
Okay.
especially in those early stages. It's a way to test the waters with potential hires and minimize risk when you're still figuring things out. You get to see how they perform, they get to experience the company culture, and if it's a good fit all around, you can transition them to a permanent role.
It's like a trial run for both parties involved, a way to make sure it's a good fit before making any long-term commitments. I like that approach.
It's about being resourceful, thinking outside that traditional employment box, especially when you're working with a limited budget. You have to be creative, you have to be willing to try new things, and you have to be open to building a team that's as passionate about your vision as you are.
That shared passion can be a game changer.
Oh, absolutely.
So we've talked about the nitty-gritty of building a business, but Julian also emphasized the importance of dreaming big, of embracing that unicorn mindset.
He passionately believes that Kenya is ready for its first unicorn. He wants to break that mental barrier, that self-doubt that says it can't be done.
I love his ambition. He even encouraged entrepreneurs to think beyond Kenya, beyond Africa even.
Yeah.
He talked about his current venture, which has offices in both Silicon Valley and in Nairobi.
Wow.
It's like he's bridging two worlds.
Yeah.
Bringing together the best of both.
Exactly. He's a true global citizen. He embraces technology, global perspectives, and isn't afraid to disrupt, outdated thinking. He's a force to be reckoned with.
Now, while we're on the topic of dreaming big and building unicorns, Julian is also incredibly realistic about the challenges entrepreneurs face. He doesn't shy away from the tough conversations, like knowing when to call it quits.
His words were, "Hope is not a strategy."
Wow.
And as someone who thrives on optimism, it was a bit jarring to hear, but ultimately it's true.
It's easy to get swept up in the excitement, the passion of building something new.
Right.
But there comes a point where you have to be honest with yourself about whether a business is viable. You have to be able to detach from your emotions and look at the numbers, at the market, at the feedback you're getting, and make a rational decision about whether it's time to pivot or even walk away.
He urged entrepreneurs to be on the lookout for those warning signs. Are you constantly fundraising just to keep the lights on? Is the business draining your resources, your energy, your sanity? At some point, you have to ask yourself if it's worth the toll it's taking on you, both personally and professionally.
He's not advocating for giving up easily,
Right.
but rather for recognizing when a business model just isn't working and being brave enough to make a change.
And he made a really important point about failure.
Okay.
It's not an end, it's an opportunity for self-awareness and learning.
Okay.
Use those experiences, those setbacks, to come back stronger, smarter, more informed.
I think that's a really empowering perspective on failure. It's not something to be ashamed of, but rather a stepping stone on a longer journey.
Absolutely. And speaking of self-awareness, Julian emphasized how crucial it is for entrepreneurial success.
Mhm.
He said you need to identify not just your strengths, but also, and perhaps more importantly, your weaknesses.
It's about understanding where you excel and where you might need some support.
Yeah. Exactly. Because knowing your weaknesses allows you to build a team that compensates for them. He gave the example of how he relies on his CFO's strengths, acknowledging that he himself might not be as strong in certain areas.
That takes humility.
Yeah,
It's about being able to admit where you need help and then surrounding yourself with people who can fill those gaps. It's about building a team that's stronger together than any one person could be on their own.
and that reminds me of what Julian said about building a board of directors.
It's all about choosing those board members strategically, making sure they're aligned with your end game.
Exactly. Are you building a mom and pop shop, or are you setting your sights on becoming a billion-dollar unicorn? That should really inform the kind of expertise you're looking for on your board.
So true. You need advisors who understand the journey you're on and can offer guidance tailored to your specific goals.
And he wasn't afraid to shake things up either. He said you could have a tiny kiosk with 11 board members or a unicorn with 5.
Wow.
It's about effectiveness, not just the number of people sitting around the table.
It's like that saying, too many cooks spoil the broth. You want a board that's lean, mean, and laser-focused on helping you succeed.
He also cautioned against giving up too much control in those early funding rounds, especially at the pre-seed stage.
It's your baby. You need the freedom to pivot, experiment, and make those early-stage decisions without feeling micromanaged.
Exactly. You need investors who trust your vision and are willing to give you the space to make those decisions. Speaking of vision, we have to touch on Julian's perspective as a Christian entrepreneur.
He's very open about his faith and how it influences his business decisions, but he also grapples with what he called the Christian narrative in business.
Yeah, he felt there was sometimes this expectation of special treatment
Interesting.
or a reliance on faith alone without putting in the hard work and preparation needed for success.
He was very clear that he doesn't believe in expecting handouts or special favors just because he's a Christian. He believes in excellence, in preparation, in being a good steward of the resources he's given, and in letting his actions, not just his words, reflect his faith.
He said something that really stuck with me. God is obsessed with patterns. Have a plan, be strategic, and don't solely rely on faith without taking action. It's about aligning your faith with your actions, about doing the work and trusting that those efforts will be honored.
It's a powerful message. I love how he blends his faith with his business acumen.
Right.
So what fuels Julian's fire? What keeps him going after all these years, all these ventures?
He says it's his mission to make housing and access to credit more equitable. He's driven by this deep-seated desire to make a tangible difference in the world, to leave it better than he found it.
It's bigger than just building successful companies. It's about the impact he wants to make, the legacy he wants to leave behind.
And he emphasized the importance of having that clear end game, that driving force that keeps you going even when you face setbacks. Because, trust me, in the world of entrepreneurship, setbacks are inevitable.
It's not a matter of if you'll face challenges, but when and. And having that North Star, that clear vision of what you're working towards can make all the difference in those moments when you want to throw in the towel.
Absolutely. And you know what else struck me? He challenged the idea that entrepreneurship is a young person's game.
Okay.
He talked about a Harvard masterclass he attended, and many of the successful founders there didn't launch their unicorn ventures until their 50s or even 60s.
That's incredibly inspiring. It's never too late to pursue your dreams, to make a difference.
It completely reframes the idea of failure. It's not an end, it's a stepping stone.
Yeah.
He even used the example of his own career trajectory. He's had ventures that didn't pan out the way he envisioned.
Right.
But he sees them as learning experiences, opportunities for growth.
He's not afraid to talk about the bumps in the road, the times when he wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. But he emphasizes the importance of keeping your sanity, of not letting those challenges break you.
He actually said the only way to recover is to first make sure you don't go nuts.
Right.
And honestly, in the pressure cooker world of entrepreneurship, that's easier said than done.
It's so important to have those self-care practices in place, those outlets that allow you to de-stress, recharge, and come back to the table with a clear head.
He also stressed the importance of having a strong support system people you can turn to for guidance and encouragement, especially during those challenging times.
Entrepreneurship can be a lonely road, especially when you're first starting out.
You need those people who believe in you, even when you're doubting yourself. Those who can offer a listening ear, a shoulder to cry on, or a much-needed dose of tough love when you need it most.
It's about having your own personal board of directors, your own cheering section, to help you through those inevitable ups and downs.
And, he also offered some really practical advice for bouncing back from failure.
Okay, I'm all ears. What's his secret? How do you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and get back in the ring after a major setback?
He believes in going back to your strengths, to what you're passionate about. He used this analogy of fishing in the same lake. Even after a long night of catching nothing, sometimes you just need to cast your line back into those same waters, but with renewed faith and a different perspective.
So it's not about giving up on what you're good at, but about approaching it with fresh eyes, with the wisdom gained from your experiences.
Right. You've learned something from that failure, so apply those lessons and try again. He also encouraged entrepreneurs to be honest about their failures, both with themselves and with potential investors.
Transparency. That's huge. Nobody wants to admit they messed up, but there's a power in owning your mistakes, in showing that you've learned from them.
He said that vulnerability, that willingness to acknowledge past mistakes, actually builds trust.
Yeah.
It shows you're self-aware, that you've grown from those experiences, and that you're not going to make the same mistakes again.
It's about being authentic, relatable, and human. People connect with that, especially investors who are putting their trust and their money in you.
Exactly. And he talked about the importance of finding something to keep you busy, to keep your mind engaged during that transition period after a setback.
It's easy to fall into a rut and let those negative thoughts spiral, but staying active, engaged, and focused on the future can be incredibly therapeutic.
He emphasized that the longer you remain idle, the harder it becomes to get back in the game.
Right.
The world moves fast, and you don't want to get left behind just because you're licking your wounds. It's about maintaining that momentum, even if it's in a different direction than you initially planned.
So pick yourself up, learn from your mistakes, and get back out there. The world needs what you're building, even if it takes a few tries to get it right.
Now, one thing that really resonated with me was his advice on surrounding yourself with the right people.
He's a huge believer in the power of mentorship, right? Finding those guiding lights who can challenge you and help you grow.
He actually encouraged seeking out mentors who are different from you,
Oh, interesting.
who have different perspectives and experiences. It's about stepping outside your echo chamber and being open to new ways of thinking, new approaches.
It's like adding spices to a recipe. A little diversity of thought can completely transform the flavor.
And he also talked about the importance of building a strong network, not just for professional gain, but for personal support as well.
Your network is your net worth, right? But it's about more than just business cards and LinkedIn connections.
Right.
It's about building genuine relationships with people who get you,
Yeah.
who understand the roller coaster ride that is entrepreneurship.
He talked about seeking out other entrepreneurs, people who've been there, done that, and can offer advice and encouragement based on their own experiences. Sometimes the best advice comes from those who've walked in your shoes.
They get it. They understand the unique challenges, the triumphs, and the heartbreaks that come with building something from the ground up.
And you know what else he emphasized? The importance of giving back, of pitting it forward by mentoring others. He believes in sharing his knowledge and experience to help the next generation of entrepreneurs succeed.
I love that.
He's not afraid to share his lessons learned, both the successes and the failures, because he knows that by doing so, he can help others avoid making those same mistakes.
It's about creating a rising tide that lifts all boats. I love that. He's not just building businesses. He's building an ecosystem of support and encouragement for aspiring entrepreneurs. Now, one last nugget of wisdom from Julian that really struck me was his perspective on competition.
He didn't seem threatened by it at all, even in the cutthroat world of entrepreneurship. He actually sees it as a good thing.
Okay. How so? How can competition be a good thing, especially when you're fighting tooth and nail to build a successful business?
He believes competition breeds innovation. It forces you to up your game, to constantly be improving and evolving. He used the example of the Kenyan tech scene. He acknowledged that it hadn't produced a unicorn yet, at least not at the time of this masterclass. Right.
He even joked that Nigerians are throwing him out there like it's nothing.
Wow.
He's got a great sense of humor about it, but he's also incredibly optimistic about the future. He believes that Kenya has all the ingredients to become a major player in the global tech scene, and he sees competition as a key driver of that growth.
It's like a friendly rivalry, pushing everyone to be better.
Exactly. He encourages Kenyan entrepreneurs to think bigger, to not be afraid to dream of building global companies. He believes in breaking down those mental barriers that have traditionally held back innovation. He's even willing to ruffle a few feathers along the way, challenging what he called lazy capital in Africa, those who are resistant to change and slow to embrace new ideas.
It's about shaking things up, challenging the status quo, and creating an environment that fosters innovation and growth.
He believes in the power of technology to transform not just businesses, but also lives and entire societies. He's not just building businesses, he's building a future. And honestly, his enthusiasm is contagious. He makes you want to be a part of it, to contribute to something bigger than yourself.
He challenged us all to ask ourselves, what are we truly passionate about? What change do we want to see in the world? Because he believes that when you start with a clear purpose, with a mission that truly inspires you, the business will follow.
And that, my friends, is a powerful message. It's about aligning your passions with your skills, with your desire to make a difference.
It's about creating something that matters, something that leaves a legacy.
And it's never too late to start. It's that spark, right? That fire in your belly that gets you through those tough times.
Yeah.
When you're passionate about what you're building, it's no longer just a job.
Right.
It's a calling.
It's definitely more than a job.
And I think that's what makes Julian Kyula such a compelling figure.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's not just a successful entrepreneur. He's a visionary, a change maker, someone who's deeply committed to making a difference in the world.
And he does it all with this incredible combination of humility, humor, and an unwavering faith.
He really embodies the idea that you could be both incredibly ambitious, ADD, incredibly grounded.
Yeah.
That you can chase your dreams without compromising your values.
It's really inspiring.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into the mind of Julian Kyula, I'm curious, what's resonating with you? What's one actionable takeaway you're walking away with?
For me, it's that reminder to embrace those, quote, failures.
Okay.
And to see them as stepping stones, you know?
Yeah.
It's about having the courage to pivot, to learn from those experiences, and to come back, you know?
Yeah.
Stronger and more determined than ever.
I love that. And
Yeah.
it's never too late to start. It doesn't matter if you're 25 or 65. If you've got that burning desire to build something meaningful, to create something that matters, take that leap of faith, go for it.
Yeah.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone.
Absolutely not. Build your tribe. Find your mentors. Seek out those who have walked a similar path.
Right.
And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Because at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is a journey, not a destination.
It really is, yeah.
So embrace those ups and downs.
Absolutely.
Stay true to your vision and never stop learning, growing, and diving deep.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening, everybody.